Good evening, it's just gone 7pm on Thursday night, the 21st of January 2021. My name is Toby Lepati Mesme, and this is another episode of MesmePolitics. Back to your standard programming after our inauguration special yesterday. Lots on the way. Get in touch in the chat at any point. We are bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a unique leftist perspective for the next half hour. So, as I say, get in touch, please subscribe, please like the video, it helps us out with the algorithm. And there's a lot to get through. We'll be talking about Priti Patel becoming the new Captain Hindsight, the government snubbing the EU for seemingly pointless reasons, Biden's day one executive actions and what they tell us. Coming up, why our Prime Minister is an overt racist, and we simply don't say it enough. But first, the UK has now given doses of the coronavirus vaccine to 4.6 million people, according to Matt Hancock, as he came under pressure to consider tougher restrictions given concerns that cases of the virus may not be falling. Answering an urgent question in the Commons, the Health Secretary said more than 5 million doses had been given, also counting more than 400,000 second injections, saying this virus is a lethal threat to us all. And as we respond through this huge endeavour, let's all take comfort in the fact we're giving 200 vaccinations every minute. He is currently self-isolating, so he was doing all of this from home. He said early indications are that the new variant is dealt with by the vaccine just as much as the old variant. Jonathan Ashworth, his Labour opposite, pressed Hancock on a survey calling it alarming and asking why, given infections are so high in London, the capital in the east of England, why are they lagging in vaccination numbers? Saying, are there constraints? What guarantees has he got from manufacturers they'll be resolved? And by when? Hancock replied, acknowledging supply could be limited because there was a lumpy supply schedule. And Hancock was pressed further on this survey and the need for potentially more restrictions after an Imperial College London study based on swab tests for more than 142,000 people across England between the 6th and the 15th of January suggested that while new infections may have fallen recently, they could be stable or even growing slightly right now across the UK. So very, very concerning things there. The death toll right now is beyond belief. We were nearly at 2,000 deaths yesterday. We're about 1,300 deaths today. It is truly getting incomprehensible, beyond belief. You keep thinking it can't get any worse. It's very much getting worse. It's heartbreaking, right? The level of people that we're losing every day. Thousands. We're heading up to 100k. 100,000 individuals. 100,000 family members, lovers, friends, siblings, parents, grandparents, children. Dead. Wiped out by a global pandemic. Make no mistake, these are the darkest days for this country since the Second World War. That is where we are right now. It doesn't compare. Nothing else compares. When we are grandparents or great-grandparents, this is what we will be talking about and looking back on as a definitive point in all of our lives. This is going to be a generation shaping, politics shaping, economic shaping, massive shift in the social paradigm. Whether it's for better or for worse depends on what we all do in terms of owning the new consensus post-COVID. Vaccinations are still going well. The government's vaccination rollout, for all its flaws, is doing what it should be doing. There is one caveat, and it's something we should be thinking about. It might be nothing, but we should be thinking about it, is that if we don't focus on getting the second vaccination into the arm as well, will it leave people more vulnerable than we think, and will that lead to more mutations in the virus? Some scientists are concerned about that. I defer to all the experts on this. Don't use me to change your opinion. Do your own research through credible scientific resources, not conspiracies or fringe academics. So please look into that, in a very clear, very verifiable way. Get all the facts verified. But that is something to think about. That's something to worry about. And, the government's complacency on these sort of things would indicate it's entirely plausible they would make a catastrophic mistake like that. But other than that, the vaccinations are going well. But I do think talk of scrapping the second dose That we're hearing talk of that in America as well, may turn out to be foolish because it may exacerbate the mutation of the virus and leave sort of a half shield of protection that can get eroded more easily. One dose of the vaccine for any of us is better than no dose of the vaccine. So if you can only get one dose, please just get the one dose. But I still am very sceptical about the science behind that. And it could backfire. But obviously it won't backfire in terms of getting the vaccine. So please, for the love of God, if it's offered to you, you get that vaccine. Talk of tougher rules. I mean, look, banning socialising outside, because that's what it's going to go to, is not really that... It's not going to help very much. You know, walking in a park or walking with one person outside from a distance. That's not going to change the R rate as much as cracking down on cruel businesses, forcing their employees to take the tube to go to work, and also paying people to stay at home and incentivising them to stay at home when they have to isolate. Those sort of things are going to be much more of an incentive than you can't go for a walk. I think that's very damaging, detrimental for people's mental health, and I think it will serve little to nothing in tackling the spread of the virus. We know now that the outside is not where, the outside when you're 2 meters away from everyone else is not really, unless you're spewing spittle all over the place. You're not and you're not standing still. You're not exactly going to spread the virus to people, and we need to think about that in that sense. However, if that study is correct, and we are not getting this under control, it's not working as it should be, we are going to have to look at new measures. I'm not sure what direction we'll go with the measures. If it's not working, the government should step up and bring in new measures. A tightening of enforcement on business closures and all these sort of different blocks that have stepped through the cracks, which has to come along with economic support and hopefully prioritising allowing people their exercise. But we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Over to another story today. Downing Street has said it is up to Joe Biden how he decorates the Oval Office after it emerged that a bust of Winston Churchill lent by the UK government had been removed. The Oval Office is the President's private office and it's up to the President to decorate it as he wishes, Boris Johnson's official spokesman said, adding, "We're in no doubt about the importance President Biden places on the UK-US relationship, and the Prime Minister looks forward to having that close relationship with him." This is a stark contrast from writing in The Sun in 2016 when Johnson, as London Mayor, not just a fringe columnist, and the author of a Churchill biography, called Obama's decision to do this a snub, suggesting it might have been because of, quote, the part Kenyan president's ancestral dislike of the British Empire. Britain Trump indeed. And I think this is as good a time as ever for us all to remind ourselves, we don't think about it on a daily basis, at least I don't. Maybe I should. Our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, is evidently, overtly, in his personal view of the world, an overt racist. He is a racist buffoon. The guy in power in this country with an 80-seat majority, a seemingly insurmountable 80-seat majority in steady polling, is a racist buffoon. He's a bigot. That's where we are right now. We are the country with the racist buffoon, right? Not the US anymore. We are now the country with the overtly racist buffoon. That is where we are. From the disturbing to the frankly bizarre, this is a question that was put to Boris Johnson by Sky News' deputy political editor.
Do you think, as some senior politicians in Britain seem to, that President Biden is woke?
I can't comment on that. But what I know is that he's a fervent believer in the transatlantic alliance, and that's a great thing, and a believer in a lot of the things that we want to achieve together. And insofar as nothing wrong with being woke, but what I can tell you is that I think that it's very, very important for everybody and certainly I will put myself in the category of people who believe that it's important to stick up for your history, your traditions, and your values and things you believe in.
Boris Johnson not quite able to resist talking about culture war issues, even in the context of Joe Biden, with whom he's got to build a strong relationship. Culture war issues still dominating politics on both sides of the Atlantic.
Okay.
Reading is to your mind what actually...
Oh, that's an advert coming in. An advert for mindvalley.com. Please don't click on them, because that was not a paid spawn. Well, bizarre. Yes. Completely bizarre. Strange question to ask. I mean, it kept him on his toes. Completely fawning over the new president now, after many people in his party have demonised the guy, but also basically after the guy cozied up to Trump in a way that made Theresa May's fawning over Trump look like nothing. But just a all-round strange thing that we're now asking people, is Joe Biden woke? Prime Minister, this is the big question we need to ask you. Okay. Across the Atlantic, Joe Biden is in the Oval Office. Here's a report from ABC News.
We're now on those just signed executive actions. We bring in ABC senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer. Thanks so much for joining us, Devin. President Biden is hoping to roll back the Trump administration's policies as quickly as possible. Walk us through what he can and can't implement right away without congressional approval.
Well, Lindsay, many of the things that Joe Biden signed today are pure reversals of executive actions that Donald Trump took. So think about it as the pendulum swinging, the flip of a switch, things like putting the U.S. back in the Paris Climate Accord or redirecting all federal agencies to begin diversity training again. Pretty simple directives, but very powerful and impactful moves that are the exact opposite of what Donald Trump did. Several of the orders Joe Biden signed today created new government positions in the executive branch to oversee COVID response. One order extends financial relief to millions of Americans with evictions and student loan debts. Now, these orders do carry the force of law, but they're not actually laws. These are, think of them like rules or policies that can be easily changed and put in place. The mask mandate is one of those. It was a requirement by many airlines to wear a mask in the sky. Now it's federal law.
Okay, so let's dive in. This is from the New York Times, and it's a summary of the various policy areas and what Biden has signed in those areas. So, on the pandemic, he signed an executive order appointing Jeffrey D. Zients as the official COVID-19 response coordinator, who will report directly to the president in an effort to aggressively gear up the nation's response to the pandemic. The order also restores the Directorate for Global Health Security and Biodefense at the National Security Council, a group Mr. Trump had disbanded. Though it is not a national mask mandate, which would most likely fall to a legal challenge, Mr. Biden is requiring social distancing and the wearing of masks on all federal property and by all federal employees. He is also starting a 100 days masking challenge, urging all Americans to wear masks and state and local officials to implement public measures to prevent the spread of coronavirus. Mr. Biden is also rescinding ties with the World Health Organization after the Trump administration, reinstating ties, chose to withdraw the nation's membership and funding last year. Dr. Anthony Fauci will be the head of the US delegation to the organization's executive board and will jump into the role with a meeting this week. On immigration, with an executive order, Mr. Biden has bolstered the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program that protects from deportation immigrants brought to the United States as children, often called dreamers. Mr. Trump sought for years to end the program, known as DACA. The order also calls on Congress to enact legislation providing permanent status and a pathway to citizenship for these citizens. Also overturns a Trump executive order that pushed aggressive efforts to find and deport unauthorized immigrants. And he ended the Muslim ban, which blocked travel to the United States from several predominantly Muslim and African countries. And he also halted construction of the border wall with Mexico. includes an immediate termination of the national emergency declaration that allowed the Trump administration to redirect billions of dollars to the war. And it says the administration will will begin a close review of the legality of the effort to divert federal money to fund the war. On climate change, he signed a letter to re-enter the United States into the Paris Climate Accords, and the United States will now withdraw from the coalition. Mr. Trump previously announced that the United States would withdraw from the coalition to combat global warming. He also reversed Trump's environmental policies, revoking the permit for the Keystone XL pipeline, reversing the rollbacks to vehicle emission standards, undoing decisions to slash the size of several national monuments, temporary moratorium on oil and natural gas leases in the Atlantic National Wildlife Range, and re-establishing a working group on the social costs of greenhouse gases. On racial and LGBT equality, he will end the Trump administration's bizarre 1776 commission, which released a report on Monday that historians said distorted the role of slavery in America. He also designated Susan Rice, who is head of the Domestic Policy Council, as the leader of a robust interagency effort requiring all federal agencies to make rooting out systemic racism central to their work. He also reinforced Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to require that the federal government does not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity, a policy that reverses action by Mr. Trump's administration, and various other initiatives along those lines. On the economy, the president is moving to extend a federal moratorium on evictions and has asked agencies including agriculture, veterans affairs, housing, urban development to prolong a moratorium on foreclosures on federally guaranteed mortgages. This will all run through until at least the end of March. And he's also pausing federal student loan interest and principal payments until September. And finally, on government accountability, he has established ethics rules for those who serve in his administration that aim to restore and maintain trust in government, and he has ordered all of his appointees in the executive branch to sign an ethics pledge. That's where we are right now. That's the state of play. Let's talk about it in more detail. This is so strange, first of all. Look at that image that you've got on your screen right now. That's President Joe Biden in the Oval Office. When I first saw that, it didn't look quite real. It felt wrong. It was like, where's the orange man gone? But he is gone. Biden is the new president now, and there he is, working in the White House. No more Trump. And a picture of FDR has gone up on the wall, which is promising. A couple of things. People are now idealising the Obama administration, and they're idealising the Bush administration. They've been like, oh, look how nice they are. They're just chatting at the inauguration. Let's stop sort of idealising these people. George Bush is a war criminal. Barack Obama is also a war criminal to a lesser extent, and a man who inflicted misery and pain on millions of people all over the world through his harsh enforcement of US imperialism, failure to take on vested interests off the back of the global financial crisis, and flagrant serving of the top 1%. And then, of course, we all know George Bush. Torture, illegal wars, hideously draconian conservative legislation. Both of these people are not to be idealised. Both of these people are thoroughly reprehensible human beings who hold grave responsibility for so many of the problems that led to Trump, but also on a moral human level are just thoroughly, basically evil human beings. Let's not idealise them, please. Because, oh look, they look fabulous. No, don't care. War criminals. Biden is taking big and bold steps through executive action. Big, bold steps that we didn't think would necessarily be taken immediately. No, the promises have not been rolled back on yet. Big, bold action on doing various actions by the Trump administration, but also setting the tone in a progressive direction and being bold in immediate action. It's a strong start. It is just a start, but it is a strong start, particularly for considering Biden is one of the milquetoast moderates, the most milquetoast of moderates. and this is what we've got. We've got big talk on legislation as well. Basically, the press secretary, Biden's press secretary, saying they will try and be bipartisan, but if they can't get the 1.9 trillion passed, they don't want to cut anything crucial out of it, and they will use whatever processes are on the table, which could include, of course, the budget reconciliation process to pass it on a clear majority. I'd encourage doing that now, and I really hope, and there is the risk of this, I really hope they don't fall into the toxic compromises of the Obama administration and grant Republicans tax cuts for the wealthy in the midst of all this. Please hold the line, get the thing over the line, do not add more illiberal right-wing provisions in there, particularly not tax cuts for the wealthy, particularly not austerity measures. Get the support to the people who need it, period. This is already looking more FDR, right? It's not FDR, it's not the New Deal, but it's much more FDR than the Obama administration ever was, and it's much more FDR just sort of the way things are lining up in terms of legislation going forward, and also in terms of the speed of getting executive orders signed. It's looking more FDR than any presidency for a very long time, right? You didn't get that from the Bush administration. You didn't get that from the Clinton administration. You appear to be getting that in some form from the incoming Biden administration. But all of this will only happen if the Biden administration is pushed, is influenced, and is otherwise cajoled into taking bold, big action. And finally, a big fuck you to the trans exclusionary radical feminists, because Joe Biden has essentially recognised trans people's rights in law, a huge step forward. All the anti-trans groups, particularly in Britain, have come out basically proving that American feminism is far more progressive than British feminism, and so many people that claim to be, women's rights would rather have Trump than someone in office recognising the rights of transgender people, proving once and for all that they're not interested in equal rights for women, they're not interested in genuine, principled feminism, which is something we should all stand in solidarity with. They are interested in denying trans people their basic human rights and simply hold trans people in contempt. They are bigots and they should be condemned. Okay, over to the United Kingdom. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, is at the centre of a fresh row after saying that the UK's borders should have been closed earlier, claiming she had been an advocate of shutting them at the start of the COVID pandemic last March. She said, should we have closed the borders earlier? The answer is yes, I was an advocate of closing them last March. So, at PMQs, Keir Starmer asked why did the Prime Minister override the Home Secretary, and Johnson said the UK had introduced one of the toughest border regimes in the world, and he's delighted that he now praises the Home Secretary, is what he said. So these comments seem to put her at odds with Downing Street, which was only last week that it announced a tightening of the borders, and it's put Boris Johnson under pressure. It was first reported by Guido Fawkes. Last March, the Daily Telegraph reported that Patel and Johnson were embroiled in a row over closing borders, with the Prime Minister said to have refused a plea from the Home Secretary to halt flights to the UK. The Shadow Home Secretary, Nick Thomas-Symonds, says this is a shocking admission from the Home Secretary about the government's failure to secure the UK's borders against COVID. Priti Patel's admission, coupled with the complete lack of strategy for the testing of travellers, means that the government has left our doors open to the virus and worrying mutations. Ministers now need to urgently review and overhaul border policy while taking responsibility for the huge damage their incompetence has done to our national security and our safety. Well, Priti Patel clearly has her own political ambitions, considering she's contradicting the government instead of being as sort of aggressively, slavishly loyal as she usually is to the government, as everyone in the cabinet usually is to the government. That's why they're in the cabinet. But she obviously has her own political ambitions and is trying to save face. That's the only way I can read into this. She wants to be the next Prime Minister. She's getting on the record, opposing, contradicting what the Prime Minister said. That's calculated. Unless she's that stupid. And I really don't think she's that stupid, because it's clearly calculated. It's just odd. The whole thing's odd. It's odd that they didn't shut them. They should always have been shut. But it's also odd that the Home Secretary is now directly criticising the Prime Minister. And there's something going on there. Meanwhile, a near year-long row about the UK's refusal to grant full diplomatic status of the EU mission to the UK has worsened, with the leak of letters revealing the EU Foreign Affairs Chief has serious concerns about the status being given to EU officials in the UK. So, the Foreign Office said the EU, its delegation and staff, will receive the privileges and immunities necessary to enable them to carry out their work in the UK effectively. Michel Barnier said, "I know the spin, sometimes more than the spin from the UK authorities speaking about the EU as like an international organisation, but we are. The Union and the UK took part in the Union for more than 47 years. I hope we will be able to get up to find a clever and objective solution to the statute of the EU in London. I think it would be very wise, in my view, for the UK to find clever solutions." David Lidington, the former Tory cabinet minister, said he really hoped the UK government did not pick a fight on this, adding non-recognition could set a bad precedent for regimes that hate EU ambassadors speaking up for human rights defenders. And Lord Adonis, that horrendous Labour peer, said Boris Johnson and Dominic Raab have decided not just to leave the EU but to insult it, denying full diplomatic status to the EU ambassador being the latest insult. Very unwise. So this is where we are. The EU mission in the UK is active in trying to explain EU thinking, including most recently on how the City of London will be treated post-Brexit. The emphasis of the mission since its inception has been building cooperation between the UK and the European Union. Right. Let's dive into this then, shall we? Yeah, really. This is what we're having to talk about. So, if they want to be recognised, just let them. That's my thing. Why do we want to be hated? Like, I see no point in this. I see no validity in this. Where's the political gain to be had? Oh, we're kicking the foreigners about. I really don't care. You know, we've already burnt bridges with America because of our Prime Minister's attitude towards various Democratic politicians, and Biden basically hates him. But now we are just whipping the European Union for no reason. And we're the ones that will get shafted because we don't have that much. We have no leverage now. What's the point? Why don't you just let them recognise themselves how they want? There's no point. There's no, it changes nothing. We're out. Just leave it. Who cares? That's my view on that. The liberal shift of the Johnson government clearly not going very well. This is getting less liberal by the day and heading rapidly closer to the old Cummings regime. So that's lovely. New fines, according to Priti Patel. Have a listen to this.
And today I can announce that next week we will be introducing a new £800 fine for those attending house parties, which will double for each repeat offence to a maximum level of £6,400. These fines will apply to those who attend illegal gatherings of more than 15 people in homes. The science is clear. Such irresponsible behaviour poses a significant threat to public health, not only to those in attendance, but also to our wonderful police officers who attend these events to shut them down. From the outset, we have given the police the necessary powers to enforce the rules which are in place to stop the spread of this virus. And as these latest measures will demonstrate, we will not stand by while a small number of individuals put others at risk.
Maybe I'm nitpicking, but I still don't like that she sounds pleased to be being draconian. I understand we need to be draconian, of course we do, in this instance, but she relishes it. She relishes sort of being really punitive about it. I don't like that. I really don't like that. Into the chat, John says there has been no... This is circling back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. There has been no testing of even delaying second vaccine beyond 3 weeks. We are led by donkeys. Exactly right, someone says, regarding the vaccine. They're going to mess it up like they have everything else. And Deirdre says, Baroness Joan Bakewell is taking legal action against the government because vaccine only tested up to 3-week interval between vaccines. Basically we're against the. I understand why for reasons of shortage, but I'm just very sceptical of doing it one dose. You know, we've got the vaccine. It's a really good vaccine. Let's do it properly. That means we have to stay in lockdown for an extra month. So be it. Let's do this right. Because that means we won't end up back in this again. That's it from MesmePolitics today. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel with notifications on. My name's been Toby Lapati Mesme. I will be back at the exact same time tomorrow. You can email at any time, tobyjoshua2004@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter, at TobyJoshuaUK. And I'll see you soon. If you want to see my twice daily 2-minute reads on Medium, I'm at Toby Joshua Politics. See you tomorrow, 7 p.m.